The Cataclysm happened 40 years ago and wiped out almost every person on Earth. There is barely anyone left, much less anyone who knows what really happened. For the survivors who have endured in the ruins of the New York City subway system, the Cataclysm Arcade is the only thing they care about. A ruthless blood sport in which champions travel by train from station to station looking for any challenger who can defeat them and take their place. We are the Slay by Slay transmission. Get the word out about Cataclysm Arcade, a trading card game that is playable out of a single booster. We're going to be talking about the world, the cards, and what's coming next for it from Mothership Games. I'm your host, Evan Erwin, and with me is the game's creator and lore keeper, Brian David Marshall. Hi, Brian.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Great. Also joining us this week is a very special guest, the lead designer of Cataclysm Arcade, Pete Ingram. Hey, Pete. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, fantastic. So we are here to talk about all things designy and creation-y with the game itself. And Pete, obviously you have a front seat to all of that and whatnot. But first I want to talk a little bit about sort of your background, people who don't know you or where you're coming from. You have a very impressive Magic career. How did you get your start in game design? How did that sort of one thing lead to another?
Yeah, so started playing professional Magic when I was 19. Won my first PTQ at Neutral Ground to go to Japan, which is really cool. Then kind of transitioned into my college years where there was a nice balance between studying and not studying to play Magic. And basically from there, you know, I played on a bunch of Pro Tours. I graduated college, and I have a master's degree in accounting that I'm not particularly using. as most people may be the case for. My parents were very supportive of me playing Magic, but they also were always quick to remind me that it was just a game and that, school comes first and all that jazz. And after I graduated, I had an office job for like 6 months, and I was miserable. And so I decided to apply to Wizards of the Coast. I ended up getting hired there for a contract position. And yeah, basically once I realized that I could make games for a living, that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah, well, you've been doing very well so far, which is awesome. So I guess for Cataclysm Arcade, I think we have sort of like the chicken and the egg thing. The idea of playable out of a single booster pack, was that something that was pitched to you, or is that something you guys came up with? How did that sort of happen?
That was definitely from Brian. That was from Brian's brain. Pitched to me and kind of ran with the idea, and I think we came up with something pretty special.
Absolutely. How long did it take to sort of crack the code? You know what I mean? Like, you have an idea, but like you go from like zero to this is the product. Like, how did that happen?
It took a couple months. I mean, we had to design the entire card file, then we had to make up some proxies and kind of get pack play going on. And honestly, Brian, kudos to you, because the core design of the game really was something kind of great for what was being done. You know, playable out of a pack, something that people haven't really seen before. You know, everything you'll see from the token system to action system, yeah, we've iterated on that, but that pretty much all came from Brian, and it was instrumental in the game's success and being playable out of the pack.
That said, the game looks very different.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, way different. Yeah.
You know, I think I remember in the original version, your boss was shuffled into your deck, right?
Oh,
and
yes.
then we changed that too. And then
yes.
and then we had it so that your boss was like essentially waiting for their level to enter play, and you could always replay them or whatever. But like,
it was like a commander zone where your boss would die and then it can come back. But the second time that it came back and it died, you would lose.
And so there was not a real. So we have all these like really hacky things that would force you to play it.
Yeah.
And so we were just like, what if it's just in play?
Yeah.
What if you just start?
I actually forgot about that. Yeah, we were like, oh, okay, this is a level 5 boss. So on level 5, the first action you must take is you must play your boss.
Yeah. It was just like, it's it's funny because one of the things I really love about this game is how non-punitive play draw, kind of like not being the first to act, feels.
Right.
Obviously, it's always nice to start a game, but it's really nice to be the last to act in a sequence too. And having that element in the game really kind of made it feel pretty bad, right? If you like, there was this mandated action you needed to take.
Yeah.
It's not like it cost you any resources, right? It was the same thing. It was level keyed, so you could just play it. But then your boss is, you're the first to act. You're like, I must play my boss, and then everyone just like pounds you around the table if they don't have a level 5 boss.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because like I play a lot of board games, and so I see a lot of the, sort of the multiplayer stuff, and a lot of them do have those kind of catch up mechanics. Like if you're not going first, you got to give them extra resources or whatever it is. Like, how did you design around that exactly, or did it just kind of feel natural based on the way that the action system was working?
I think it ultimately just felt natural based on the action system that was working. I mean, we toyed around with a lot of things. For example, once everyone passes, we go to the next level. We toyed around with an idea that was like a check pass type thing, where you pass and then you can come back in on the next once your opponent does something. And so it's like kind of like this bluffing mechanic, which had a lot of cool aspects to it. But we ultimately found that it was just a lot easier and simple to be like, okay, you passed, you can respond now, but you're done.
Yeah, it was pretty, and it's led to some really interesting play scenarios. Like as you get a little deeper into the game, I remember we were doing a play test session in New York. We had Jim Davis, who's a friend of yours, and Jim had a character that had a 0 cost to attack, which is normally what you would attack with first, to sort of preserve your action but it had 2 -1/-1 counters on it, -1 attack counters on it from Echo Fade. And so it was just kind of useless. And what you sort of do instinctively is push that character to the side,
right,
and don't use it. And, Jim was just like, attack for nothing, like preserve my actions, right? Like I still have the ability to act, and I can wait until I'll see what everyone else does. And it was like, was one of those, there's a lot of little moments like that when you're designing a game and iterating on it, where someone does something, you're like, oh, cool. When someone finds something that you've built into the game. So I think as players get to play more, that's really where you find a lot of nuance in the game. Pete, you've played a lot more heads up Cataclysm Arcade than I have, and you said that that's like really what you enjoy about that play pattern, right?
Yeah, I really do enjoy that with Heads Up. It's very much action economy, kind of finding those spots where you can attack with that level 0 fighter, or try and position yourself in such a way, the way you play your cards in sequence, that you're going to end up with that advantage of being the person who is able to make multiple moves while your opponent's passed. And I think that's a really, really cool element of the game.
Yeah, I found when I play on Monday nights on Gerudo, come play with me. I found that, it's really interesting because sometimes I'm like, I really want to like burn an action. You know what I mean? Like can I just not act right now and just let them do one more thing, so then they'll be done and I can do my thing and so on. And it's really cool. The pack itself, contains all these different kinds of cards. Obviously, we don't have the boss there anymore. We start with the boss, but I'm curious sort of what ratio you landed on, how many versions it took to get there. Like I can imagine there's something to do with sort of collation. There's something out of, technological advances that were necessary. Like we couldn't have made this game in 93, but we can make it in 2026 because of sort of the abilities that we have with the printing process.
So I think first and foremost, fighters are very important. They're kind of like the meat and potatoes of dealing damage and kind of keeping a board presence. So we want a good portion of the pack to be that. But what's even more cool, as you mentioned, as we live in 2026, we have a slight curation for each boss that allows us to kind of pick some cards that will be seeded with that boss. And so that allows us to, for the other cards, we're like, okay, we have majority fighters, some weapons, some responses, some tactics. But for those 5 cards, are going to really play well with the boss. So if you have Sky, for example, and you want a bunch of fighters in your deck, those are probably going to be all fighters. But if you have Mother May I in your pack, then you're going to have more tactics and responses in your deck because that's what she wants. So it's something really cool that we've been able to do.
I feel like Mother May I is destined to be the most broken card in the set, just because we've changed her so many times. She's ultimately just going to fall into being utterly broken.
Probably, yes.
And how did that kind of sort of that ratio? How did that come about? Like, how many sort of iterations did it take for you were like, oh, okay, we need 5 for this, and when 3 for that, and 2 for this, and so on.
Yeah. So basically, once we realized that we could seed the packs, I think that was like a big stepping stone to that. But prior to that, we had done some slight iterations, just like you want to have fighters, but you also want to make sure that there's an equal distribution of early level fighters as opposed to late level fighters, so you're not just stuck with a hand of that you can't do anything.
It would be pretty brutal to get a booster pack that's just all like level 5 and level 6 fighters, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah, we with that in mind, we pretty much had it pretty early on, but then the ability to seed really, I think, elevated that experience.
which is also something that came out of, someone was asking in the Discord about, the game design process, and do things, do you start with this really clear vision of what you're going to do, and the reality is, whatever you start with, like, whatever that initial design document looked like, right, until someone touches it, right, starts playing with it and doing stuff, nothing ends up exactly the way you think. So, like, when we started, at one point we called booster packs booster decks, right, like, which we don't do anymore because it's misleading, and didn't really took away, I think, from some of what we're doing that's really novel. But it led to this, we had some people play testing. It led to this expectation that when you got a boss, you'd be able to do the boss's thing. Right. And so, they had like a little bit of a feel bad with that when it was totally random.
Right.
Right. You could still play, but like you might not get a really cool synth to recur with the decommissioner. Right. Or enough that it happens frequently enough, or you might not get a cool weapon for tool shed or whatever. Every time you see things changing, every time you see things evolving over the course of the game design, right, it's just about getting more and more people involved in looking at the game and feeling the game and playing the game. When we went to PAX Unplugged, that led to a whole wave of tuning and iteration and user interface, and and then when we got to Gamma and we're showing it to even more people, right, it was like, oh wow, this is, let's do a pass for legibility, but let's also think about how we're, like, making sure that everything was explained with reminder text, making sure that we were, I think that last Gamma experience was so really the best one we had in terms of like takeaways, in terms of what the card frames look like the ability to like clearly spell out when a card ability on a fighter was a response.
I saw that,
right.
yeah.
And really just making that like crystal clear, because I realized I was missing it sometimes, right? So the more people who are not your core team that get to look at it, the more information you get, the more you get to sort of watch them parse the cards and play the way they play, right? Not the way you play, right? Which is always gonna be something different, is super cool. I don't know if I told you this, Pete, but like I played the game with John Finkel and Flores and Lanho and Dan O'Mahony Schwartz.
Yeah.
They were like, oh yeah, we want to see your game. And so we played, they played a 4-player game, and I kind of like proctored. Dude, they went deep. The game played out, like the game took like more than an hour. Like, I mean, it's like a credit to where like, that doesn't sound like a great advertisement for the game, but these guys are, they were tanking on every play. But the idea that there were so many decisions that they could hyper analyze is a real credit to the work you've done on this card file. But it was really, really cool to see, and they all killed John first, by the way.
I would do the same.
That was their strategic approach.
Okay, so speaking of Magic players and what Magic players are kind of used to, the level system it replaces the mana cost for a card. It sort of gates when you can play it, but you don't have to rely on having resources in front of you to play it, because you do that sort of naturally. How did that kind of was that there from the very beginning? Did that come up later?
Yeah, that was there from the very beginning. We always knew that we wanted some type of level system where fighters would have to meet a threshold to enter enter play. And then we also wanted some type of resource system where you'd incrementally gain resources over time, and you'd be able to use that to play certain cards or activate attacks or activate abilities. And yeah, so we pretty much knew like that we wanted fighters, we wanted tactics, we wanted responses. And then we also toyed around the idea with some type of permanent enhancement effect. And we had a laundry list of those. But from those, weapons made the most sense from a fight. A big fight, brawl is happening, people grab their weapons. And weapons initially, actually, funnily enough, started off with costing tokens. And it was at a playtest where, Brian, you mentioned the playtests have just been so valuable. Anytime we bring something somewhere and see someone playing things, we were in New York, and I saw someone, pay a bunch of tokens to put their weapon on their fighter, and then subsequently everyone at the table just took turns taking down the fighter that put the weapon on it, and this person just used all their tokens for it. And I was just like, wow, that feels terrible. What if we just made weapons level requirement? And that's pretty much all she wrote there. Once we did that, there was no turning back. We really loved that change.
Yeah. Also, I think one of the big changes with weapons early on was not letting them equip to bosses, not letting bosses wield weapons. The idea is that when you see the boss, it's fully manifested, right? Yep. It's got its weapons, it's doing all its things, it doesn't need anything else. But for a while, the games ended a lot quicker when bosses could pick up these things, and because it's a lot harder to punish someone for wielding a weapon to a boss, right? It takes a lot more to take that down. So
exactly, there's not much cost to the decision of equipping to your boss because your boss is going to be there until you're out. So
yeah.
There's
that was a fairly we figured that one out pretty early,
pretty fast.
I've dabbed my toes a little bit in game design, and that sort of moment where you do that thing and you're like, oh, this is, it just feels good, it feels intuitive, it feels like the code is cracked now, and you're like, oh, that's a lovely feeling. Being mostly, at least we're leaning social multiplayer type gameplay, often king making is a problem for that sort of setup. What design choices did you make to sort of push back against that, where it isn't all just we're gonna gang up on this person with the weapon, and we're gonna gang on this person with a certain boss, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cataclysm Arcade really lends itself well to that because actions are taken subsequently by all the players. Mm-hmm. So if someone is amassing an advantage, you can kind of just keep that person in check. And if you don't, they might be at a severe advantage, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas in like Commander, you can just play silent and tell everyone to be quiet and do your thing and just combo off. You can't really do that in Cataclysm Arcade because everyone needs to take an action subsequently.
You can certainly, in any multiplayer game, all decide someone's not going to win.
Sure.
Right? That's but I think we've seen that multiplayer games are something people really want to do. And and when they do it, they don't want to just make someone feel miserable. Right? The
villainize one person.
You sit down to play a 4-player game is, yes, it's possible that this could happen. And then if it keeps happening to you, maybe you need to examine your life choices. Think about, why is this happening to me? What did I do to make it?
It's not the game, it's me. Oh no.
Yeah. It's funny. I had when Conspiracy came out from Magic, right, which was a multiplayer game product, and I was part of the team that did a video for it and got to do this world premiere of it, and was associated with it to some degree, right? Not as a creator or anything, but just like, oh yeah, I saw your face playing this with Marshall and Nate and whoever else. And so I would go to conventions and I would always try to play it, but that was the only time in a multiplayer game I ever felt miserable, because we would sit down and you'd break out and people were like, well, we're at a convention, I don't know anyone else here, so I'll attack you. And I would never get to do that. That was the only time I would literally be out of the game before anything could happen. They were like, well, we assume you know what's going on, so you're going to die. But that was fine. That was part of the job. That's what I signed up for.
Sure. So, Pete, you got experience, in the magic design development world that you kind of bring into this project, of course. And is there something that you were doing or could do in a magic world that doesn't work in the Cataclysm Arcade world?
I think from a design philosophy, being that we're playable out of a pack, we've really lent ourselves to, in Magic, you can often take control of your opponent's creature and kind of like a control magic or, a creature that does it or something like that. And we try and tend away from that, mainly because there's a bit of confusion that goes on there. Oh, was this mine? Was this yours? We're playing both out of a pack. I don't know what was in my pack. So, right. It might just go in my discard pile. So we've kind of lent away from that. But as far as like other design choices go, I mean, we can pretty much do a lot of things that Magic does.
I don't think we have the same tendency towards like combo engine.
Yes.
Like there's certainly things you can do that like are like more discrete combos, right? And give you like a little pop of, but because you take an action and pass, you never get that ability to just create an infinite loop and do something and just sort of kill the table.
Yeah, and that's also a large reason why we've implemented the rule that you can't respond to anything that you do yourself.
Right. Oh, you can only respond to your opponents.
There you go. All right. Well, that's really cool. And is there any questions that I didn't ask that's something you would like me to bring up here that people should know about yourself for the game as you designed it?
We did have a question. Let me see where it went.
That was, do you fully understand what a game will become when designed initially? Or is it more of here's the idea and we can build off what works, right?
We knew what the product should be. And we knew that we were going to take a game design philosophy that embraced product design equally, right? Like that those two things were completely linked. But I don't think we had any idea what this would look like at the stage we're at right now.
No, definitely not. I mean, just seeing people's enjoyment playing the game over the course of the time that we've been showing it to people, and their response has been just kind of eye-opening in a way that I was never really cognizant of it in the start. Mm-hmm. It's been a really truly great experience, and I'm excited for the future of Cataclysm Arcade.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, absolutely. So let's go ahead and move on here from our opening static to single card talk in Tunnel Visions. This is where we have a few cards. Normally we have 2, but this week we have 3, which is awesome. We talk about the design, makeup, development, and final card image, of course, everything that creates a card in Cataclysm Arcade. I'm going to start by looking at Hard Knocks. Now, before we show the card, we talk a little bit about it. So on the design side, Pete, what were you looking for? I'm sorry, let's start with Brian. Let's start from the lore side, then we'll go to the design side. Brian, tell us from the lore side who Hard Knocks is.
So Hard Knocks is a member of the Van Hootens, which I think we may have talked about before, but the Van Hootens are a gang of human survivors who are descended from circus folk. So the idea is when the Cataclysm happened, there was this circus in New York City that was loading out in the subway tunnels, and they, which is why they survived the Cataclysm, and they have handed down their knowledge, their craft of being in a circus over the 40 years of since the Cataclysm. And Hard Knocks was, as we're trying to fill out, like, okay, we know we got a strong man, we know we've got this character, what does a clown look like in the post-apocalypse? And I really just wanted to make this frickin' badass clown. And I was working with an artist, a friend of mine, Chris Cross, who used to do the comic Blood Syndicate for Milestone Media and has done Web Slingers and Captain Marvel and a bunch of. He's tremendous. Someone I've known for a long time, and we talked about what the character could look like, and we came up with something that was like a cross between Radio Raheem from Do the Right Thing and the bank robber characters in Dead Presidents, right? And this was sort of the starting point for the character. And I think what Chris did is that's one of my favorite pieces of art in the whole set.
Nice. So, Pete, you take that, and then sort of where do you go with that knowledge of the character?
Yeah, so I mean, you have to learn from the school of hard knocks, right? So, uh, so you know, tactics often are able to kind of one-shot fighters without about like, oh, what would that look like out of a fighter able to do that? Um, we obviously didn't want it to kill anything, but 2 or less health felt appropriate, and you know, maybe you kind of learn from the school of hard knocks not to let your fighter go down to 2 or less health if you're playing against hard knocks. So that was kind of just how that came to be.
Very well. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at the card itself. This is the debut of Hard Knocks. It is a level 4 survivor with 2 health, an attack cost of 2 tokens, and an attack of 2. It is a fighter from the Van Houten tribe, as we discussed. When Hard Knocks enters play, destroy target opposing fighter with 2 or less health. And so this is quite the 1-2 punch, if you will. And the Radio Raheem with the heart on the knuckles is fantastic. I love it. I love it so much. And so did these numbers change a lot, Pete, in design and development, or were they sort of where they were to start with?
Yeah, no, I think the numbers changed. Originally, it had more health, but then I was like, okay, well, if this thing is killing something much for free, it should probably have less health. And then I think originally it had 1 attack cost and 1 attack, but wanted to give it a little bit more power in that regard, so we made it 2 and 2. But yeah, the text of the card has always remained the same.
Yeah, to go back to sort of a design interviewee type question, it's always fun to me of just like there's there's often sort of magic numbers, if pardon the term or the pun, but like there's numbers that just sort of they click. There are certain numbers that you want them to be. Like for example, almost all of the 1-drops have 3 or more health. For example, how did you kind of find those levels?
I think numbers? Honestly, just through experience of kind of figuring out like, all right, well, level 1 fighters need to have X amount of HP if we want them to survive for maybe a turn or 2 or a level or 2, and then kind of going from there on how powerful is the ability of the card. As later levels go on, should that ability warrant lower health or higher health, and then kind of just keeping like a base for each level, right? Like as you mentioned, level 1 is like 3 health, and level 2 is like 3 health as well, because we wanted to bridge that gap. And we found that going a little bit too high on health relative to level was tricky. Some characters do that more than others, but then
and you can make a character feel special with that. It's really
it's
one of the really interesting dials that's revealed itself over the course of developing the game. Is that any of those numbers, that health number, the attack number, and the attack cost, like that permutation of numbers is really a lot of fun to play with, and people respond to those things very strongly.
Yeah,
I love when a high health character comes out and people are like, oh.
Like it's only got 1 attack, but 5 health. Oh my god! What am I going to do? It's going to take 2 or 3 attacks to get rid of that guy. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's move on here to our next character for Riyle Unchecked. Brian, where did this character come from?
This is a character. This is a card this is a case of, I think, the card design inspiring the character.
Oh,
so this was something that Pete had in the card file. With there's some characters that'll come in with a fairly generic name, and we know what it does, and then I'll go back and try to figure out how to represent that from a lore. And it goes both directions, right? There's bottom up and top down designs in this, and so this was more of a bottom up one. And when I was looking at how it worked, I really just pictured. I'm thinking like, what's a creature we haven't done in the shifters yet, but also just that idea of what would do damage to itself and to its opponent when it's getting into a tussle, and really came up with this idea of like a stag with these horns that could, like almost like picturing it trying to get out of a subway car with that, and like, just like smashing into things and just getting really angry. So it was just a really fun win. And so worked with Daff, who's an artist who's done a lot of, I think probably the most cards in the Kickstarter set.
Oh, wow.
And someone who I just love. I love working with, and I don't even think we got a sketch for this. I think he might have gone right to like finished art on it. Like he got it immediately, and it's just such a badass looking card.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let's talk. We'll reveal the card here since it was a bottom up design. You created the card first, and then Pete, we'll talk about where it came from. Riyle Unchecked is a level 3 shifter. It has 4 health, 1 attack cost, and a 1 attack itself. It is a fighter, and when Ryle is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target boss or fighter. And when Ryle deals attack damage, deal 2 damage to Ryle. So that is very much come fight me, bro. Like, let's bring it on. You can't stand, like, if I want to hit somebody, I'll hit myself too. That's okay. There's ways to heal fighters or temporarily heal fighters and things like that. So where did this come from?
This kind of toyed around with the idea of what we were talking about before, where, all right, what if you have a higher health per the level? And this I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I'm pretty sure this card started out as a level 2 fighter. We bumped it up to level 3 because we thought it was a little strong. Give it a little bit of a debuff there. But the idea for this card basically came, this card is really good at doing combat. If you want to deal with the stag, to deal with Ryle, and you don't have a removal spell, you need to fight this thing head on, and it's going to cost you in some form or fashion. And then also playing around with the idea of, okay, well, what if we have a fighter that actually hurts itself? So it's kind of killing itself, but it's doing damage to multiple things. And I think it ended up in a really cool place. I'm excited for Riyle Unchecked. And also, I should mention, another thing with Riyle is you can kind of combo it with cards that deals damage to fighters and not bosses. Mm-hmm. So you can circumvent that by dealing the damage to Riyle and then dealing the damage to the opposing boss.
Yeah, he kind of sort of turns himself on.
Something like Boom, for example. Right? You can, really just cost yourself multiple pieces of material to finish off a boss. That always feels good.
Yeah, sacrifice Ryle and deal 4 or whatever to their face. That's quite a bit out of nowhere. So yeah, this card's cool. I do love the fact that when you do that first read, you're like, okay, and you're like, wait. If he deals it to himself, he gets to turn on his first ability. Oh, okay, all right, that's totally awesome. And I can see why this card kind of came together like that. All right, let's move on here to our last card, sort of an extra card that was requested by Pete himself, and this is Grammie Picker-Upper. So did this start? I guess we'll start with, was this top down lore first, or was this bottom up card first?
This one was bottom up again, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, Pete, tell me what you were thinking about this, because this card is really cool.
Yeah. So most people who've played Cataclysm Arcade, you've seen a range of level 1 to level 6 fighters. There are a few exceptions to that, and Grammie is one of them. Grammie's a level 7 fighter, so it's quite large. And when Grammie enters, you can wield any number of weapons to her. And often you'll find, like, you want action economy to go slow and, kind of wait until the last second. And Grammie does work well with that. But also, Grammie can just come down and be like, hey, immediately grab everything. And now you have a turn. If it's a heads-up player, you have a sequence to deal with this, or if it's multiplayer, they have all one action to take to deal with this. But if it gets back to me, there's going to be hell to pay.
All right, so let's take a look at the card itself. This is Grammie Picker-Upper. It is a level 7. I've only seen one of these ever, and it's this one, with 7 health, 2 attack cost. Its attack is 2+. I wonder what the plus is for. It says when Grammie enters play, you may wield any number of your weapons to her. Grammie gets +1 attack for each weapon she is wielding. So not only do you get all the bonuses from those weapons, she also gets +1 attack for each of those weapons. That's very scary. That's the battle cruiser you would want to put together on level 7. And wow. And so, Brian, how did you come up with sort of putting a character to all this?
This is, I was working with the family dynamic of the Joneses, this neighborhood infiltration killer elite robot unit. And I thought it would be just really fun if the lethal 7 drop, just kind of boss of the family was this like sweet old grandmother who's carrying a jackhammer, F with me ammo's gauntlet, and just has like a Rambo knife in her teeth, and right. So started working with Zach Howard and Nelson Daniel to go back and forth on it, and again they nailed it pretty early on. She's also wearing a jetpack, a swift pack, so that's why she's flying. So she's got like in that piece, she's got 4 pieces of weaponry from around the game, on her. So pretty cool. So what would she get at that point, Pete? Like if she has those 4 weapons.
So she would have agility plus 1 attack. She'd have, agility doesn't stack, but she'd have agility again plus 3 attack and block. And then what were the other 2?
We said F with me's slingshot.
Yeah,
slingshot. I have that one, so that's plus
tool
1.
Sheds.
Jackhammer.
Jackhammer, that's plus 1. And then what was the last one?
The knife in the teeth.
The knife in the teeth. I guess that's just any kind of.
I think that's just
a generic. Yeah. She found something, she want to kill you with it.
1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 attack.
And do it again.
And it's just sweet little granny coming to get you.
Yeah.
And stomp you to death. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So let's move on here, much like the game, to the next level. All right. In this segment, we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up for Cataclysm Arcade, what we'll be showcasing in our next episode, and how you can stay involved. Next time, we'll continue our chat for the world of Cataclysm Arcade, including extended looks at new characters like Hot Mike and Tube Steak. You guys can imagine what those characters might be doing. At the end of May, retailers can see us at the ACD Expo in Madison, Wisconsin, myself and Brian. And anyone can meet Brian down at Cool Stuff a few days after this goes live in Cool Stuff Dallas on May 15th. So that'll be very exciting. You guys can come and say
we'll be there
hello.
all weekend.
Hell yeah.
We're really, really excited to play the game with people. I've seen some people in Discord they're like, oh, maybe I'll go now, which is amazing. Definitely come on down and get into some games with us. I've been playing the game for a while now, not even remotely tired of ripping packs and jamming games. So,
oh yeah, I'm very excited.
We're gonna have Andre Garcia with us. By the way, Andre has done some amazing art pieces, and his art is on the wrapper for the booster packs. And he is going to be doing. We're going to have We've done one of the really cool things we've done is make cards that have no art on them. But it has the full card frame and the text. And so he's going to be doing sketch cards for people until his hand falls off, honestly. So
we're going to work him with bone. You understand what we're saying here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we take a real Cataclysm Arcade approach to our art. It's a blood sport.
Oh, yeah, let's go. Visit play.cataclysmarcade.com for more free content, links to our Discord community, learn how to play, and much more. Sign up for the Kickstarter, get some free stuff for just, following along. You don't even have to pledge. You can just follow along. And that ends this broadcast. I'd like to thank Brian David Marshall for joining me. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you, Pete, for joining us.
Anytime.
And for you all for watching or listening. We're going to move here to our final slide. We'll be back soon with more post-apocalyptic news and updates right here on the Slay by Slay podcast.